Hello, everyone. Okay, I know the title to this video is not that sexy, it's not that glamorous, but get ready to have your mind just explode with a bunch of new information about trines and conjunctions. And when we get to the conjunctions, oh my God, you're going to see them in a totally different and new way. You are going to learn some new secret tips and even some techniques that I use with the conjunction that I have really found nowhere. Nobody's talking about this. Conjunctions seem like they're straightforward. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not. They are very complex. And if you've got conjunctions in your chart, that means two planets next to each other, right? Within 10 degrees. That is very, very powerful. That is like a heartbeat. That is a pulse in your chart that you need to know about. Not all conjunctions are good conjunctions. We're going to get into that in a minute. First, I want to tell you about the sweet power of the trine. Okay, trines happen when two planets form an angle of 120 degrees with a 10-degree orb. Now, I take 10 degrees, so that means they are at 120 degrees, so they can go from 110 to 130, and that is still considered a trine. That's what I use. The tighter the orb, the stronger the aspect. So an orb of 1 degree is really, really potent. And if you've got an exact trine, that's like a bullseye on a dartboard. I mean, that is the jackpot. I would say though, a trine with a 10-degree orb still can be really, really powerful. Now, trines are usually 4 signs away and in the same element. So a trine is 2 water signs, 2 fire signs, 2 air signs, or 2 earth signs. However, it is important to note that sometimes they will not fall in the same exact element, and we're going to get to that in a minute. So trines can get kind of tricky, but they definitely are going to have a different modality. So they're going to be cardinal and fixed, fixed and mutable and cardinal. So they're going to have that combination to them. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Meredith and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I own my own company, Soul Navigation. I am not a Vedic astrologer, and I am really deeply and profoundly moved by this astrological community, and I love bringing you deeper astrology, and I love bringing you the truth. And there's a lot of truths that are not said, so I like to share them with you here on my channel. And I do a new video every single Sunday at 9:30 a.m. and I do shorts every single day. Are you guys watching the shorts? Oh my gosh, those are a little bit lighter and they're super fun to do. So for the novice learner, trines are very easy to spot because it's just water signs are in trine to water signs, earth signs are in trine to earth signs, fire signs are in trine to fire signs, and air signs are in trine to other air signs when the orb is within 10 degrees. Now, orbs and aspects are very, very important. So if you have a 1 degree sun in Aquarius and you've got a 29 degree Mars in Libra, well, that's 28 degrees away, right? 29 degrees away. So that is not actually a trine. So you can have a trine by element, but not by orb, right? So those two parts of your chart, they understand each other, but they're not really in aspect to one another. However, those planets are in a synchronicity with one another because they're sharing the same element. And when they are within 10 degrees of one another, they work towards the same exact agenda. Welcome to my unedited video. I think my editor is having her baby today. Yes, this is Bo, and he's not going to stay here very long. I know that, but I just wanted him to make a little appearance. So trines are sharing sort of the same experience, but coming at it in a different way. And if it's done. Oh, he's so cute. You have to kind of, in order to know if your moon is in trine, or if your moon is in aspect, you really need to know your birth time. Everything else, you will know your aspects just based on the day. So with trining aspects, there's a centralized energy and there's a real cooperation between the planets. And if you have a grand trine, it means all three planets of the same element within a 10-degree orb are in aspect to the other two. So all three are in aspect to each other. And so it's the cluster of three. And so you could have a grand water trine with, and let me tell you, you can have a trine with 3 planets in Scorpio, 2 planets in Cancer, and 2 planets in Pisces. So it's not just 3 planets, but it's all 3 signs, and you could have multiple planets in those signs. And that gets a little bit more complex and complicated. That's a very complex chart, if you will. But there is usually a lot of harmony and synergy and grace and ease with a trine. There is a magnetism. Things come quite easily for those trine aspects. This is sort of a charmed spot in your chart. It's like the trine allows the energy to ping pong back and forth with a lot of ease. It's a great volley. It's a great rally, right? And it gives you a lot of like natural talents and abilities and a lot of good luck and a lot of amazing opportunities, I will say, will come your way. And in fact, you could have it so good with the trine aspect that you're just used to having this sort of luck or magic or ability in your life that it makes you kind of lazy. So I will tell you that there is, oops, I'm teaching my puppy how to be potty trained, and it is a big job. He he's not really a lap dog, but he is super loving. Anyways, this is my unedited video. Anyways, here we go. So I want to go back to trines. So there's a real downside to trines, just like there's a downside to drinking too many delicious margaritas or too many chocolate donuts, right? So you may take your opportunities for granted with this, and you might even waste your talents in some way. And if you have a few trines in your natal chart, you might even act kind of careless with them. And you might just sort of glide through life with kind of like very little care, or with just a laissez-faire attitude where you just don't want to put a lot of energy and work into things, or you don't want to do things that require a lot of energy or work. So trines don't really evolve you or grow you like squares do. And to be successful with the trine aspect, you really need to manage your energy wisely. Otherwise, you're just going to become kind of lazy, and good things can happen to you without any hard work, but then it can erode your self-esteem. So the best thing to do is never rest your laurels, right? And always strive and try to develop your skills and up the game constantly. It's almost like you have to challenge your own self. And you have to grow sort of a integrity, like a work ethic, if you will, and just know that prosperity comes from your hard work, right? To tap into your greatest fortunes, blessings, and abundance. Now, there is a trick to trines that I really want you to pay attention to. And I'm really only talking to my advanced listeners. And if you want to rewind and play this part again, I hope that I can explain it well enough, because I don't want to confuse anybody. So if you don't get this, just know one day you will, and you can come back to this part of the video. But I do want you to stay for the conjunctions, because the conjunctions are really, really, really going to be important. So I just want you to know that knowledge will come to you when it's supposed to. But for my advanced listeners, I really want you to know this. Okay, here we go. So you can have trines that are not in harmonious elements. So, for example, you could have Venus at 2 degrees Taurus, and then you could have it trining Jupiter at 28 degrees Leo. And those are square to one another, we think. We think Leo and Taurus, those are fixed signs and they're square to one another. But when you have one at 2 degrees and one at 28 degrees, they're only 4 degrees apart, which is within the orb. So they are not trine by element, but they are trine in aspect by orb, right? So when you've got those low degrees and those high degrees, you really have to look at your chart differently. So if you've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10, and if you've got 20 to 29, you really have to look at your trines. Now, if you buy a gorgeous natal chart from me, or if you buy the starter package, we tell you those trines. You can just look in the little grid and it adds them up for you. And it tells you in your report, so you don't have to guess. And that is really helpful. And one way, here's a little trick that I use. If I have a 29 degree Sagittarius, well, I round that up in my head to just be a 0 degrees Capricorn. And if I have a 29 degree, let's say Leo, I round that up to be a 0 degrees Virgo. And now I know I have a trine. So that's just a little advanced trick and technique that I use to be able to do fast math, because I am not super good at math. It's not my best subject, if you will. Now, I want to talk to you guys about synastry. And synastry is when my sun trines your sun, or my moon trines your Mars, or my Jupiter trines your, Neptune. And in synastry, when you make a trine with a person, you will feel the harmony. You will feel gotten. You will feel felt. You will feel like this person supports my goals, supports who I am, and doesn't try to passive aggressively or just aggressively put me down, challenge me, or thwart me. The trine people in your life are most likely people that speak your same language, have similar goals in mind, and really care about your growth in the world. There's an ease, there's a compatibility, there is a joy. So if you feel really good about somebody, see if your moon is in trine with one of their benefic planets. We're going to talk a lot about benefic planets in the conjunctions. So stay tuned, and you can apply what I say about the malefics, the benefics, and the neutrals with your trines and even with your squares and oppositions. So this part of the video is going to be applicable to all aspects, and it's just really, really potent and really, really powerful. So I can't wait to tell you these secrets. But in synastry, back to that really quickly, it's really, really important to look at the people who are in trine to your ascendant. That means they will understand you with great ease about who you are in the world. To your midhaven, that means they will probably support you publicly. They might be a reference for you. They might lift you up or even offer you a platform or a new place in life or the world or society, or open doors or give you opportunities. Or on the IC, that's a little bit more intimate. Like they understand you like family. They feel like family. Or the seventh house, it's like, wow, they want to partner with you. Business partner, friendship, romantic partner, right? And so trines in synastry are blessings. They're people who you will just naturally seek out and really enjoy. So I really invite you to get your natal chart of the people in your life too, so you can start putting them together. By the way, are you coming to Barcelona? Because I am changing the first day of my curriculum to understanding synastry. It is going to be so excited, and tickets are selling. So if you want a ticket, you can just push the payment plan button in my shop. Just go to soulnavigation.com, click on Meredith's Astrology Workshops and Retreat, and come learn deep astrology with all of us in Barcelona. I am so, so excited. We're going to go to a flamenco show. We're going to have tapas and drinks on a rooftop bar, and we are going to learn deep astrology all day long. But on day one, I'm going to teach you synastry, how to read your chart with another person's chart to read the story between the two of you. Is that not exciting? Oh, it's going to be so, so incredible. I just should tell you really quickly on day 2, I'm going to teach you my 3 tips and techniques on how to make easy predictions and forecast your own life using astrology. And on day 3, we're going to talk all about Neptune and the spiritual connection to the divine and to the evolutionary and the spiritual, deeply, deeply profound lessons you are here to learn in this lifetime on your evolution. Neptune is the most spiritual planet, and it is beyond awe-inspiring. And so we're going to end the workshop on day 3 with Neptune. You guys are just going to learn so much. Your mind is going to be blown. Let's move to conjunctions. So in astrology, the conjunction describes 2 separate points. And I say points because they can be planets, but you can have a conjunction to the angles, to a house cusp, to the part of fortune. I hope you guys are liking my part of fortune series on my shorts. You could have it to an asteroid. You could have it to the nodes, which is just another point in space. So you could have a conjunction to almost to anything in your chart. It means 2 things are next to each other within a 10-degree orb. The tighter the orb, the stronger the conjunction. And so because their energy is in such close proximity, it's like they become fused together. So in this water bottle, if I put blue food coloring into this water, right, they would merge. That's what a conjunction is like. That's exactly, and I can't take the blue food coloring out of the clear water after I put it in, right? That is the power of the conjunction. They actually penetrate one another and they become one thing. And the force inside of a conjunction is like it's like the power of the 0 degree. It is like the power of Aries. It is rocket fuel, it is torque, it is power, it is punch, pow. I mean, it just pops. And it is so powerful, the 2 energies that are attached literally become symbiotic. They become one thing. Now, this is where I'm going to just lay out my secrets. The conjunction is not always a positive thing. Not all conjunctions are equal. So it really depends on 3 things. And I want you to stay tuned for these 3 things and even rewind and rewatch until you really understand what I'm telling you. And here is what is crazy. I have not found anybody who talks about how the conjunctions really work in its complexity and in its entirety. They just want to take these 2 things, blend them together and make them one. And they think that's the end of the conjunction story, and it's not. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to talk about the benefic planets, the malefic planets, and the neutral planets. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what those are in a minute. But first, what I want to say is the benefic planets, like being blended, like being infused with or fused to or integrated with or in conjunction with other benefic planets. And they also do not mind being in conjunction with neutral planets. And malefic planets do not like being in conjunction with benefic planets or other malefic planets. And I think they don't mind neutral planets. They'll just take advantage of them. So basically, if you have a conjunction with a malefic planet, the malefic planet will make this conjunction difficult for you. This will be a challenge for you. This will be a place or source of pain that you need to overcome. This will be hardship. This will be your version of I had to walk 5 miles in the snow. Did you guys all get that from your parents as kids? And then, of course, there are the neutral planets, which what they do is they sort of turn into the energy of the other planet, whether it's benefic or malefic. But we're going to talk about this in more detail. But first, I want you to consider in more detail another factor that makes a conjunction a good thing or difficult thing. And that is this conjunction in square, in sextile, in trine, in opposition, in quincunx to the other planets and the angles in your chart? Did you hear that? You probably need to repeat that. You probably need to rewind this. So this is going to also determine the energy inside the conjunction. Let me explain it again. So if your conjunction is, let's just say you've got two neutrals, sun, moon conjunct, two neutrals. Well, the moon is more benefic than neutral. So let's say sun, Mercury, two neutrals, but it's square to the ascendant. Well, now it's not so neutral because it's struggling with the ascendant's mission, right? So the aspects to this conjunction from the other placements in the chart, the angles and the other planets, really determine whether this is an easy conjunction or a hard conjunction. And now it just got hard. We did two neutrals, even if we had two benefics, and they were square to the ascendant or they were square to Pluto Mars. That would be difficult and challenging. They got each other, but being fused together doesn't create really an action. It only creates an energy. Did you hear that? Being fused together, the conjunction, okay? The conjunction does not create an action. It creates only an energy. That's all it's doing. It's just creating, toner on my blonde creates a color. It creates it creates two energies into one. But squares make things happen, right? Okay, so we have to keep going. You're going to learn so much. Now, those are my first two tricks about the truth about conjunctions, and here's my third thing, and then we're going to flesh these ideas out a little bit more. Now, this is a little bit complex if you're only learning astrology today with me, but hopefully you've watched my more than 600 videos on my channel, and please like and subscribe. And if you want to go even deeper, and if you want to even learn more, and if you want to come to my members only party this July 29th, if you're watching this in 2023, where we're going to look at your individual charts and we're going to do a giant Q&A, and come to my members only party. Yes, yes, yes. Be a super supporter or a superstar super supporter. Join this channel. It just puts 6 cents into my pocket a day, or 30 cents if you're a superstar super supporter, and it helps me do more videos, more content, and we go deeper and you get to learn so much more. So let's talk about this. The third thing to consider is that conjunctions are not just like a 50-50 split. It isn't just 50-50. The two things are fused together, right? So for example, if I mix white paint color, white and red, and if it's 50-50, it's going to show up as a solid, probably a bright pink. But if I use 30% white and I use 70% red, it's going to come up a different color, right? So I want you to know that this conjunction is on a continuum, and which planet do we give the heavy weight to, right? That's what I'm going to help you figure out. Isn't it exciting? Isn't it exciting? So this is my secret. We have to look at the position of the two planets, how far apart they are in orb. If they're 10 degrees in orb, well, then we know we have a light red and we have a white. Like, we know that it is still a conjunction. It is still powerful, but it is not the same kind of power as an exact. An exact is just like, wow. But what I want you to do is this. I want you to look at your chart, and if you have two planets in conjunction and one of the planet actually rules that house natally, meaning in your own chart, it is the ruler of that house in your natal chart, or it is in its comfortable house by and the comfortable ruling house by the natural zodiacal wheel, well, that planet will most likely dominate the conjunction. So for an example, let's say you have a Leo sun conjunct Venus in Leo in the 5th house. Well, we know that in the natural zodiacal wheel, the 5th house is ruled by the sun. We know that. And if you guys don't know this, I want you to take my master class. You can just go to soulnavigation.com and click on Learn Astrology with Meredith and click on how to read a birth chart. And then I have a couple free videos here too on this channel that you can watch, but it's only $20. And I want you to really learn the natural zodiacal wheel. So we know that the 5th house is ruled by the sun. So if you have Leo there, right, and you have a Leo sun, we already know the sun in Leo is exalted. The Leo is ruled by the sun. So we already have the ruler of the sun. And then we're going to put that in the 5th house with Venus in a conjunction. Well, now we know the sun in Leo in the 5th is going to be the boss of Venus. So even though Venus is a benefic and the sun is neutral, the sun, even though it's neutral, it is going to eclipse in a way Venus. So let's take a real quick minute, and I'm going to tell you what I consider benefic and what I consider malefic and what I consider neutral. So I do consider the sun and Mercury neutral. I consider Neptune as capable of going both ways. So because of that, I'm also going to say Neptune is neutral. A lot of astrologers will say Neptune is malefic, and I just don't experience that. It can be, it super can be if you have a lot of squares to Neptune, when it is connected, let's say you had Sun conjunct, let's say you had, Sun conjunct Neptune squaring Pluto or squaring Mars. Yeah, that can get really twisted. So Neptune is the trickster, and it really is the trickster, but I'm going to call it neutral. The moon, Venus, and Jupiter are the benefics, and Mars, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto are the malefics. So malefic means kind of negative, harsh energy. They bring you a challenge. And the benefics, moon, Venus, and Jupiter, are considered like abundance and good things. Now, again, you can have too many delicious, yummy margaritas, right? Like you can have too much of a good thing. And so I want you to stay in your wisdom. Stay wise with this. Just because you have moon conjunct Venus, right, doesn't mean like all good things are going to happen to you. I've seen moon conjunct Venus squaring, and the person's had just a god-awful time at life. So Mars, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto being malefics, they don't like being next to each other. And malefics really don't like being next to, they're not necessarily beneficial being next to anybody. They're better solo. So, like I said, when you place a malefic next to a malefic, it's very, very challenging. When you place a benefic planet, say the moon, next to a malefic planet, say Saturn, that creates challenges. Saturn creates challenges for the moon. And when you place a neutral planet like Mercury next to a malefic, say Mars, that makes things very, very challenging for Mercury. When you place a benefic planet like Jupiter next to a neutral planet, say Neptune, that can be kind of good. And it can be kind of helpful. And the neutral planet takes on the energy of the benefic planet. And when you place a benefic planet, let's say Venus, next to another benefic planet, the moon, that is also fantastic. So in Vedic astrology, I'm not positive, but I've seen, so I could be wrong, but I think they considered the moon a neutral planet rather than a benefic, but I consider it a benefic planet. So now here is the huge secret. How, I should say the secret sauce, how we put it all together, okay? Um, I already told you that if one of the planets is in its natural zodiacal ruling house, so that means if you've got Mars in the first house, if you have Venus in the second, if you have Mercury in the third, if you have the moon in the fourth, if you have the sun in the fifth, if you've got Mercury in the sixth, if you have Venus in the seventh, if you have Mars or Pluto in the eighth, if you have Jupiter in the ninth, if you have Saturn in the 10th, if you have Uranus or Saturn in the 11th, or if you have Neptune and Jupiter in the 12th in conjunction with another planet, well, that planet is most likely going to dominate because it's at home. Now, that also works if, let's say, you have Sagittarius in the ninth house, you're a Gemini rising, and you have a conjunction with, okay, hold on. Did I say seventh house? Let's say you have Sagittarius in the seventh house, and you've got Venus and Sag conjunct Mars and Capricorn, let's just say. Well, I know you would think the benefic planet would dominate, but in this case, because it is in Venus, and Venus is in its own natural zodiacal home, the seventh house, it is going to probably have more influence, but Mars is still going to mess with it. I'm going to give you more examples. So let's go back to that other example where I was talking about the Leo sun conjunct Venus in Leo in the fifth house. So now let's take a neutral with a benefic in the fifth house. So let's say we have Leo sun is in the fifth house, but it conjuncts a malefic Saturn in the fifth house as well. The sun is still going to dominate that Saturn, believe it or not. Even though Saturn is the stronger planet, it's an outer planet. In some way in that conjunction, that sun is so strong because it's in the fifth house. It's in its natural ruling house. Now, I'm not saying it pummels Saturn. It doesn't. But in some way, it is given more weight to be able to handle Saturn because the sun is in its own house, the fifth house. It is also in Leo. So it's got these double positives. Now, Saturn is going to be a challenge, and Saturn is still going to be a problem, and Saturn still is the heavier planet because it's an outer planet. But the sun does have a chance in this conjunction. I still would say it hurts. It really hurts me to see Saturn in the fifth house. Did you guys see my Saturn in the fifth house? That's very, very painful. And it's not like the sun sign is going to get unscathed from Saturn, but I do want you to know that this sun has a lot of strength and it has a lot of vitality and it becomes powerful. So Saturn still might knock it down at times and it still might, scuff it up. But this sun has a real vitality and a resilience and an ability to stay strong in the face of Saturn. And Saturn, if this person is a healthy person, really could create a lot of internal fortitude and tenacity in this soul's, in this soul, in this sun sign person's life. Let's say if the sun was in Capricorn and it was conjunct, by an orb to Capricorn in Jupiter, and this was happening all in the ninth house. Well, you guys know, and if you don't remember, go back and rewind and listen to the houses that I just told you. And also take my How to Read a Natal Chart class, master class. Let's say all this was in the ninth house. Well, you all know that Jupiter loves being in the ninth house because that is the house it rules in the natural zodiacal wheel. And so Jupiter, I won't say, I'll just say Jupiter in this case, because Jupiter is also a benefic and the sun is neutral. Jupiter will dominate this placement. Jupiter will dominate this placement. Most likely, and it will really, really influence the sun. So if you have Mars conjunct Venus in the seventh house, Venus is probably going to, not the stronger planet, but it's probably going to shine a little brighter. It's going to have a lot of dignity that's going to sort of push back on the Mars a little bit. And this conjunction, Mars is still going to be loud. It's still going to wreak havoc on that Venus in a way. But Venus is going to use her ability in the seventh house um, to work with this Mars energy better, because Venus is in its own house when it's in the seventh house. So it becomes very, very, very helpful to this conjunction. So if you have the same conjunction in the first house or the eighth house, Venus conjunct Mars in any sign, it doesn't matter what sign it's in, but if you have it in the first or the eighth, well, we know those are Mars houses. So Mars is going to probably eclipse the Venus energy, and Venus probably has to try harder. So it doesn't just take over and completely eclipse, but it does add a lot of weight. Now, I kind of have a fourth trick that I want to share with you. And this one you might know about. I don't know. But this is the fourth thing that you really have to consider when you're looking at your conjunctions. And that is which planet is out front. So which planet has the higher degree. So if you have, let's say, a Sagittarius Sun Venus conjunction in the fifth house, and you have Venus at 28 and you have the Sun at 15, right? Because it's the Sun's house, right? The fifth house. But Venus is the lead planet. And the lead planet is leading the charge, is leading the Sun. The Sun is behind Venus. So Venus is leading, but it is the Sun's house, the fifth house, and it's in Sagittarius. Both are in Sag, so they both kind of have this even playing field. I'll tell you, there's a power play here. And they're both going to be very, very, very strong inside this conjunction. And maybe one day Venus will lead, maybe one day the Sun will lead. My self-expression versus my values. And it's going to be really quite mutual in a way. Venus, though, does have an ability to carry even more power and more weight just because it's leading. So let me tell you how I think this would show up if this was really for real with this Sun person in the fifth. I think this person would look or would express themselves very Venetian, very Venus-like. If you have a Sun conjunct Venus and Venus is out in front, Venus takes the lead and it sort of wears your expression, if you will. But the Sun is strong in there because it's in that fifth house. If this is in the fourth house, the Sun is not as strong in the fourth house. If this is in the second house or the seventh house, Sun conjunct Venus, Venus is exalted. And it is just, you must be a gorgeous human being if you have Venus conjunct Sun in the second or the seventh house. But let's say you have the Moon conjunct Mars in the fourth house. Well, the Moon dominates, but Mars is the domineering malefic planet, right? So it's a little crazy making. But the Moon actually has a chance when it's in its fourth house to stand up to Mars and to make Mars behave and become more healthy. So the Moon, a benefic planet, in my opinion, some people say neutral, and Mars, the malefic, it's not like the malefic can always take the benefic out. You got to really look at it. So if you have Moon Mars in the fourth house, that Moon will soften Mars, and Mars will make the Moon really emotional and maybe have a shorter temper. But let's say Mars is leading the Moon. Let's say it's leading the Moon. So the Moon is behind. Well, Mars is sort of now influencing in a powerful way, and your emotions probably look Martian. You probably are a little bit louder with your feelings. You probably cry in public, where if you just had your Moon in the fourth, you might not cry in public. They're expressed with a little bit more pack, volatility, if you will, loudness, more expression, more bing, bam, boom. And you might have your emotions come and go very, very quickly, like Mars. You might experience fast emotions. You might not be able to hide your emotions. So there's a little bit of a power play here because the moon does like its fourth house and it's at home there, and it works the very best in the fourth house, so it has a chance to be really healthy. But that Mars is going to cause problems if Mars is behind the moon and the moon takes the lead and the moon is in the fourth house with Mars. I'm not saying Mars isn't problematic, it's still a problem, but the moon has more of a chance. Do you guys love this? Do you love learning about this? Is this new for you to see? This is a whole new concept in conjunctions that nobody talks about. So the outer planets, if you have moon Pluto in the fourth, I'm telling you, you're going to feel the Pluto. It's not like the malefic planet just gets erased and goes away. No, but the moon has a chance, especially if the moon is at a higher degree than Pluto. So then what you have to do, and I'm going to end with this, is you have to look at that conjunction and you have to see if it is in positive trine or positive sextile to other benefic or malefic or neutral planets. And if that conjunction, let's say Pluto conjunct the moon and Pluto is leading, well, we know this is going to be tenuous and we know this is going to be hard. And let's put it in Taurus. And then let's say that that's in square to Mars in Aquarius. Well, we know that Mars square Pluto, Mars square moon in Aquarius is going to bring very serious challenges. And so this person has to do really hard things to create a healthy moon Pluto conjunction. And it has to take action, Mars squaring moon Pluto in my hypothesis. It has to take action in a way that it probably is afraid to, in order to create deep psychological and emotional healing. The psychological wound and the emotional well-being, or the emotional body, right, together, Pluto moon. Did you guys watch my Pluto playlist? I hope so, because Pluto is big time, and if you have it conjunct the moon, you better get over there and watch my moon playlist and my Pluto playlist. But I want to end with this kind of blessing, and that is, if you do have it square, if you have your conjunction square, it's kind of a blessing because it's a release valve. It's literally like a lid on a cap that you can take off and you can let the energy out. And if you don't have any aspects to your conjunction, they just sit there together. And Pluto just talks to the moon, and the moon just talks to Pluto, and you just have this stagnant object, just fused together, and there's no way out. So the square, if you will create a release valve, and it will at least give you challenges to take on. Now, if it's in trine, what I like about that is there is something healing about this. There is some silver lining. There is some blessing. But a malefic Pluto to the moon is still quite melancholy. It's painful. But having a trine there, I know there is something powerful and good for you that will come of this. There's a deepening. Maybe you become world's greatest psychologist or psychiatrist or nurturer in some way because of your own personal trauma or wound. So those squares, we need them, my friends. And I hope you watched my whole video on squares. And my next video is going to be the quirky, the little bit wild, one of my very favorite aspects, the quincunx. Do you have a quincunx? That's the big question. And I'm also going to do my sextiles. So my next video will be quincunxes and sextiles. And sextiles, they are my very favorite aspect out of everything. I love sextiles. I think they're very powerful. I hope so much you got a lot out of this video. I just absolutely adore you. I hope you are a member and you're enjoying being a member. And please subscribe, like, and share my video. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. And from my home here in Seattle to wherever you are at in the world, thank you for sharing yourself with me. I love having you here. Bye for now.